Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Give you a quick LSU sports recap. We had the baseball team go under and do their sweep. Women's basketball team had a tough upset. And there's apparently a college football playoff expansion being rumored to be talked about. I mean, they keep adding teams, keep widening it. We'll talk about why. Give you a little bit of a Saints update this offseason. Offensive coordinators, mock draft, the whole 9 yards. Got a couple of notes on it. Start things off with baseball. Everybody is excited to see the spring turn over and watch an LSU team potentially chase another national championship, right? The hype around the baseball team has been very, very big lately. It's been growing. Jay Johnson's been giving them the praise. And I mean, to start things off here with Chase Shores, your pitcher, you were kind of wondering how he'd be able to return from the Tommy John injury, from that surgery. Jay had nothing but praise for him, his recovery, the balance he was able to provide to the team. And I think the pitching did well this weekend. Obviously, it's a smaller opponent, but I mean, you got to start out somewhere. Let's give them credit where credit's due. They struck out 45 batters in this series. That hadn't happened since 1992. So you're obviously doing something right when you can break a streak like that in that regard. Chase Shores, 5-inning pitch, 67 pitches, a run, 3 hits, and 7 strikeouts in his return. So shout out Chase. A couple of your big performers, Ashton Larson, 5 RBIs, 3-run home run, 2-run double. You had Jaden Newt with 4 scoreless innings on the mound, 7 strikeouts, only 2 hits given up. Next game LSU Baseball has is Tuesday at 2 p.m. versus Southern in the box. And this team looks good. This team they look explosive. Chris Stanfield looks like a really good addition. I mean, the transfer portal is just Jay knows how to work it, man. He knows how to recruit. He knows how to hit it home, and he's built a really good program over there. I'd imagine the baseball team's going to be able to make some magic this season. And the good thing about recruiting that well is that the success is sustained, right? You're not going to have 1 year where it just comes and goes and it slips right by you. You're not going to be able to recreate it. It's not a lightning in a bottle type feel. I think he's building a very good program, and I feel like success and at least the starts like this are pretty prevalent. Now, we do want them to continue this as they go through SEC play. I know last year there were some hiccups. There were some highs and lows. You had to go through the replacement of the production of some of the best LSU baseball players ever, quite frankly, and Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens. Now, you've had another year to kind of chip away at that, and I think they're going to be able to make some noise. That's just my take, though. Hopefully, the women's basketball team can make some noise, because Sunday was rough. Number 5 LSU took an L to number 3 Texas on the road, 65-58. Here's the thing, though. LSU was up by 12 with about 4 minutes left. Texas finished on a 34-15 run. Now, that's about as sloppy can get, quite frankly. Here's a couple of your key performers, though. Michaela Williams, 18 points. Flaugier, 16 points. And shout out needs to be Anissa Morrow, 15 points, 20 boards, her 24th double-double of the year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Anissa Morrow is really one of the best players in women's college basketball. Really dominant, really physical. I think that she's got a lot of skills in her game, and she really is kind of balanced at all levels. She's not just a rebounder and a scorer. I mean, she's very good at defensive moments. She's very good in the transition. She's a great leader off the court. I feel like she possesses a very, 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 wide array of skills. And preseason, at least, I thought LSU would really be able to run the table, if you will, just because when you have a player like that, it's kind of hard to not lean on their side, give them a little bit of an edge. I feel like you've got, the puncher's chance, so to speak, whenever you have a player like that. That's the equivalent of a Juju Watkins, a Paige Records. In some instances, it's better. Anissa, she can't do everything, though, right? You're going to have to obviously have some help. You're going to have to obviously get some more consistency on the other end of the court. With Flaugier, she was questionable pregame, so I don't know if that played in to any of this. She had a great second half in terms of defensive performances. I believe the person she guarded, I don't know if she made 1 or 2 field goals on like 10 to 11 attempts. But Mulkey's stressing one late game execution, because you can't let them go on a run like that where they're damn near doubling the points you're scoring, where they're, cutting a 12-point lead. And we've kind of seen the women's team struggle a little bit with that, with the late game finishing, with, like I said, the sloppiness. But look, we were just talking about Jay Johnson and having to replace a lot of production, right? Well, LSU's in that same situation as well on the women's basketball side. You got to go in the portal, you got to go in the recruiting class, and you got to dig deep and find some, key pieces that you're going to throw in the starting rotation. At the same time, it's kind of hard to see how they're going to play. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but some of the additions sometimes just don't pan out in the way that you would have initially expected. At least that's kind of how I see it. Another key thing that I have to talk about, LSU held Texas in the beginning of the game, the first half, to 20% from the field. That's the defense that you need to continuously have throughout the whole game. You can't let them get hot. You can't let them go on a little streak, on a little run. Here's one of the biggest pieces to why I think the Longhorns were able to do what they did. 21 out of 21 from the line. That's insane. You get 21 attempts to get a free basket. You don't screw up a single attempt. You go 100% and you capitalize every single time. They call them free for a reason, folks. When you're able to capitalize, I think it's kind of hard to separate yourselves from that team. A third of their score came from the charity stripe. You got to stop putting them in a situation where they get easy buckets and you're not able to respond. And I don't know how you're not able to respond, but the offensive production is definitely going to have to increase. Before this game, LSU women's basketball was the 2nd seed. Now they're going to move. I don't think they're going to move that far down. I feel like if you're outside the top 8, you're probably around that 3 seed stretch. But you got about 4 tough games left. You need to win at least 3. You can't really drop any, at least if you want to stay at the top, especially in that top 2 range, if it's possible, which I'm not sure. But you're going to have to close out strong, especially with the upsets that's been happening. I mean, this past weekend, number 11 UNC beat number 8 NC State, and then obviously number 7 UConn killed South Carolina. So there's going to be some shuffling, and I think LSU's kind of going to catch the brunt end of it and probably wind up shuffling down. But that's what happens. You got to play better basketball here, especially in this stretch. I mean, it's one thing to start and win 25 of your first 26. Everybody's watching at the end of the year. That's when Selection Sunday is really making their biggest notes. That's when you're in your conference play. That's when everything heats up. That's when the games matter the most. You've got to put together your best stretch toward March. Everybody knows this. This hasn't changed. It's not just a rule for this year. Hopefully they can be able to switch it up. Speaking of switching up, I have a hypothetical situation on the screen for you right now. So I don't know how, I don't know who, and I really don't know why, but they're talking about a college football playoff expansion. And when I mean they, specifically the SEC and the Big Ten, they're pushing for maybe a 14 to 16 team playoff format. Now, the first thing I wanted to know was how the hell are you going to do that? Well, we've got a potential bracket as to what this year would have looked like in both situations, the 14 and the 16, the way that they're differentiated. The 16-team bracket has no buys. Everybody's playing. 14 teams has the top 2 seeds getting buys. Really, the whole focus on this, I'd imagine, first things first, you got to address the elephant in the room. Revenue. More games, more teams, potential for bigger brands to stay in there and not get eliminated. It's all about the money. Then I feel like there's also, and I could be going out on a limb here, but I also feel like there's a Big Ten and SEC move here to try to keep as many of their teams in this fold as possible, because with the new format, there could potentially be, as you've seen with the SEC, some people getting left out of the fun. Some people feel like they deserve to be in there. My thing is, well, I mean, if you put it together mathematically and you get the top 12 best teams, I don't think anybody can complain. If you're not in the top 12, I don't know if you're a playoff caliber team. Sometimes I sit here and wonder, are there even 12 playoff caliber teams in college football in general? And now we're going to keep adding teams. Now we're going to keep trying to push teams into that space. It could work, but it also could not. You also could be in a lot worse situation. There's concerns, a lot of concerns. First things first, the player injuries. Obviously, more games, probably, quicker turnarounds as well. So that's something you're going to have to think about. And I'm not really going to worry from the bowl integrity standpoint. People were talking about that, worrying about, what it's going to do to bowl games. I'm not sure it's really going to kill it. I mean, you got the damn Pop-Tart Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl. You got so many bowls. I don't think that's really the worry that I would have. Another thing that I need to point out, though, I mean, if you're looking at the projected brackets of what this year would have looked like, I just don't think it really fixes the major problem. I think the biggest problem is that the SEC teams wind up playing themselves, eliminating themselves, and half of the damn pool from the SEC is already gone. But in both projected brackets, an SEC matchup happened. In the 14-team bracket, it would have been Georgia and Ole Miss. And the 16-team bracket, same thing. I just don't think it's inevitable or avoidable. I just don't think that you can put a formatting on a playoff to try to keep as many SEC and Big Ten teams in as possible. I feel like it has to go down to a mathematical formula, equation, whatever you want to do, but it has to be similar to what the NFL does in terms of put your statistics together, put your records together, let's see who you played, and let's put the top 12 in. If they move to 14, whatever, I mean, more playoff games, more coverage is kind of beneficial for us, but I can see the slippery slope that we are on in college football. Let's move to the NFL. The Saints have another decision to make, but this one, it's not as difficult. Well, they really got two decisions to make: offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and you can hypothetically see a third decision with this draft coming up. But for offensive coordinator, that's probably their least stressful spot that they're going to have to think about. Why? Kellen Moore is going to be your play caller. Now, doesn't that mean your offensive coordinator is off or not? No, he's still going to have a lot of roles. He's still going to have to, get his side of the ball accustomed to that scheme. He's going to be around them in practice, creating the plans, getting the personnel out there. There's still a lot of responsibility from that standpoint. It's not just what plays are we calling. There's two options, and I'm sure there could be more. There's two highly reported options. The first, really the more obvious, Doug Nussmeier. And I mean, you can go in any direction. He's a former Saint, drafted in 1994. He's worked with Kellen Moore at a variety of places, from the Cowboys to the Chargers to now the Eagles. And then lastly, obviously, the really cool tie in terms of his son playing an hour away at LSU, the flagship university for that state. It's a pretty cool fit. I mean, if he would get the job, I'm sure there would be a lot of people that would be thrilled. There's another option. Los Angeles Chargers head coach Brandon Staley. Now, I obviously would like both options. I'm just saying, though, from Brandon Staley's standpoint, it's similar to what Pete Carroll did with Chip Kelly and the Raiders. You got another head coaching mind on the set. Now, as a coordinator, obviously, you don't have as much decision-making control and as much, impact as a head coach. However, the fact that you've been in that position before makes me think you're overqualified for a coordinator spot. And I could be wrong, because sometimes some head coaches are just not ready. And sometimes they get canned and then they have to take a step down, like maybe a Dennis Allen. But I feel like there is value in the fact that they've been around the block before and can probably provide assistance to the staff and probably could be a big beneficial piece. When you think of Brandon Staley, you think of the lack of success in Los Angeles. But there's also another aspect to this. I think he could be a good addition. I mean, I think Nussmeier is probably the most probable, but at the end of the day, you never know. If Nussmeier did get the job, it is a good sign for Derek Carr. I mean, as a quarterback coach, working with a variety of names, from Dak Prescott to Justin Herbert to Jalen Hurts, it could only help. I don't think it hurts Derek Carr. And I know there's a lot of people that are anti-Derek Carr, but there has to be a little bit of a desire for improvement. I mean, if he was going to be a better quarterback next season and have the Saints looking like they did through the first 2 weeks, but the whole season, I think people would be happy. And I think people would be in a situation where, they'd be surprised and taken aback by what Derek Carr can possess. How do you get Derek Carr to be better, though? Well, I got an idea. Start with the draft. Start with Ted McMillan. That's a good option. You're looking at the mock draft boards. You're looking at the latest rumors, the latest murmurings, and the Saints are really tied to two position groups: wide receiver and offensive line. Now, this is a mock draft, right? That doesn't mean this is what Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore are talking about. Nobody's got a wire in the room in New Orleans, but it is probably your smartest option. I mean, the draft has to be nailed if you're the New Orleans Saints. You've got no money to spend in free agency. You're getting no free agents. You're probably losing more in free agency than you're gaining. I think it's $70 million, whatever the hell it is. It's the worst in the NFL all the time. So you got to treat this draft like it's you last, pretty much. I think McMillan could test out the water. She's probably one of the best wide receivers in this class. And I think his stock is going to be, talked about really, really well and positively here as his numbers come out through this NFL Combine. It's also another weapon that can help Derek Carr. I mean, he's got a good receiving core. You got Olave, you got Shaheed, you got MVS. And then this addition to it would have four major options. I mean, pair that with someone like Kamara. I feel like you've got options. I feel like you got something that could potentially, be a patched hole. You got a couple of holes, though. In this situation, it's about what hole do you want to patch first if you're the New Orleans Saints? Because the bucket's got to stop leaking. And I mean, when you got 12 holes in the damn bucket, it sucks. You're losing a lot of water, and you're probably thinking about buying a new bucket in general. But, you can start patching it up one hole at a time, get all the way to a dozen. In the Saints situation, you got to start with skill positions. That's been my main thing. Kellen Moore needs people to draw plays up with. You really don't have anybody that's majorly explosive and young. I mean, Chris Olave is good, but God bless. I don't know how many more concussions he can take before, that starts turning into a question mark. You got to try to spread that wide receiver room out. You got dogs. I just named them all. We're going to add Olave, McMillan, MVS, Shaheed. Kamara is still a great receiving back. Derek Carr could have some pieces. You're not getting any in the free agency market, so you better get used to drafting them, because I don't think any wide receivers coming for pennies to the New Orleans Saints. Never know, though. Could get lucky. I'm going to hop out of here, get ready for class. Appreciate everybody for tuning into the stream. Hit the like button. We'll be live Wednesday at 9 a.m. again. Like I've been saying, spring practice right around the corner. We got about 2.5 weeks until LSU takes the field. If you got any questions, anything you want us to cover, drop it in the comment section, and we will get to it starting March 8th. Mark your calendars. Y'all have a good one. This has been the Verdin Verdict.